Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to Organizing an ADHD Brain. I'm your host, Megs, a professional organizer and coach specializing in helping late diagnosed women with ADHD thrive. I'm here to help you embrace your neurodiversity and create a life that celebrates your unique way of thinking. New episodes drop every Monday and sometimes even twice a week if the topic gets particularly exciting. I started this podcast after my own ADHD diagnosis, feeling lost and alone. But as I learned more, I realized there were countless other women going through similar experiences. I wanted to create a space where we could support and learn from one another. As a professional organizer, I've discovered how clutter can often mirror the chaos in our minds. By decluttering our spaces, we can find the clarity and space in our lives we have been seeking. So join me on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Together, we'll uncover how ADHD can be super powerful and learn how to organize our lives in a way that works for us. Join me as we unleash our potential. Welcome back to Organizing an ADHD Brain. I'm your host, Meg, and this is the podcast where we ditch the overwhelm and create calm amidst the chaos. I'm so excited you're here. This week, we're diving deep into what is organizing and what is decluttering. This is a fundamental exercising and knowing what you're doing when you're doing it so that you can sustain the results instead of continuing to try something that has failed over and over and over again. If you're struggling in knowing where to start, feeling like you're drowning in your to-do list, or just can't seem to find the right system that works for you, then you're in the right place. I'm going to share some actionable strategies, some real life examples, and my best tips to help you find the sweet spot of an organized space. This week, I am back in action, working from home and not back in Western Massachusetts. It was definitely a journey being back at my parents' house. And I will tell you, I took in lots of deep breaths while I was there. I talked about the air last time, but there's something about breathing in the fresh air that is not even remotely close to a city and smells of sweet flowers with a crisp chill. It brought peace over me that I don't always feel on a regular basis here. I live close to my neighbors. I love my neighbors, but I live close to them. It's hard to find yourself in a field where there's not a lot of people around you. Before I went to visit my parents, I actually spent a night in New York City. One thing you might not know about me is I used to perform as a kid. I used to sing, I used to act, I used to do all the things that definitely showcase my ADHD, if you will, because it allowed me to do these crazy things that filled up my brain with excitement. I used to go to plays a lot as a child. I loved seeing people perform. So I went to New York City and I brought myself to a Broadway show. Crazy enough, I've been to New York City multiple times, and I do believe that when I was younger, I did go see a show at Lincoln Center with my mom and her cousin, and I made them ride the subway because I had never ridden the subway before and I really wanted to do it. But we went to Wicked. I took myself to Wicked. I took myself on a date and I wore my Taylor Swift boots that had rhinestones all over them, and I just enjoyed myself. It was such a beautiful time. I'm glad I did it because it took me out of my comfort zone in a way that I haven't been in a really long time. I walked down the streets of New York. I bought myself ice cream. I walked to Central Park and I did it all by myself. And I needed to be able to prove it to myself that I could. Then I rented a car downtown. I took an Uber from the airport. This all sounds just easy peasy now, but when I'm so used to being with my husband and my kids all the time, it's just kind of strange to be traveling by yourself. And it's strange to be doing it without a partner or someone to lean on. But I leaned on myself, and now I proved to myself that I can do it. So where to next? I don't know. I could do anything. For this episode, I was going to pull out one of the interviews that I have ready to release, but I felt compelled to dive back into the basics when it comes to organizing with an ADHD brain. It's really important to really understand where you're coming from when it comes to organizing and what it is. So I'm going to go over what it is. I'm also going to provide some helpful links to back up all of the things that I'm saying as I'm going through this. I'll post those in the show notes below. And typically to get to the show notes, if I'm on Apple Podcasts on my phone and my episode shows up as if it's playing like I see the big pause button in the middle. In the top right corner, there's three little dots. And if you click on those three little dots, you can go to the episode. When you go to the episode, it'll give you a little button to resume, or you might even be able to still listen to it as you're doing this. But at the top, it says send us a text, and then it'll go through a description of the episode, different links and helpful tips and tricks. And then it'll also give you a breakdown in the episode and different key spots that you can scroll to, depending on what you're most interested in. Or, of course, if you're trying to save the episode for later, this is a good place to come for that as well. This is also where you can get a link to my Patreon, to my Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Linktree. Anything that I have going on is going to be posted here in the show notes. On Spotify, if you're searching for the show, Organizing an ADHD Brain, and you go to the show and you click on the episode that you want to listen to, when you click on the episode, it's actually going to show you, it says send a text at the top, but it'll describe the episode and then click on see more. And it'll give you the remaining show notes with all the links, all the helpful tips, and then, of course, the best ways to get in touch with me, including a direct link to my calendar so you can book a one-on-one time with me to see if coaching is the right option for you. Also, I can't respond to text messages. So if you want to know more, please book a time with me or shoot me an email. It's megs.fromtheheart@gmail.com, where you can reach me and ask some additional questions if you're not ready to book a time with me but just want to reach out. You're also welcome to reach out on any of my social media channels, and I'm happy to answer you there. I just can't answer the text messages that you're sending me through the platform. What you can do with the send a text message feature is, what was your takeaway from this episode? Someone asked me recently in the text message features, talking about decluttering versus tidying, that oftentimes they get stuck in the tidying aspect of things instead of decluttering, which then just eliminates the time that you're decluttering, you're just tidying, and then all of the time is lost, right? So often we're trying to get other things done. And if we have a messy house, but now we're trying to declutter, what do you do first? That is a lot. So let's talk about the basics, and then I'll talk to you about how I would approach that situation. So what does organizing actually mean? Literally, what do you think organizing means? I want you to stop and think about it for a second, because I think we talk about it so often, but we don't necessarily understand what it means to us. That's one of the things I talk to my clients about is, what does organized look like to you? What does it feel like in your home? Have you defined it? Because so often we're trying to achieve this picture or this perception of reality that we believe is true for us, when in reality, it's only true for a TV show or maybe an Instagram photo that we saw that was totally staged, because people don't necessarily live like that all the time. Unless you're the Kardashians, then more power to you. A simple definition for you is to arrange things and thought in a systematic way. And so that's why we so often talk about creating systems for ourselves that work. Ultimately, the systems are created so that you can thrive in your home, and they work for your brain instead of against your brain. Our kitchen is a prime example, because that's often the place where we typically put things back where they go as much as possible, just because it's easy stuff. It's stuff that we use every day, but we're not taking it out of the kitchen to use. We're using it in the kitchen, and then typically we're trying to put it back away where it goes. When it comes to systems, think about some of the systems that you do have set up already. It can be really simple. Like, when the dishwasher is clean, I put the glassware away in this cabinet, and this is where all of that glassware goes. And that is your system for doing it. Now you get to elevate your system by saying, every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is empty the dishwasher. This is not my system. I'm just giving you an example. Every morning I empty the dishwasher so that it's easier for me to load dirty dishes into the dishwasher, so that it's not sitting around waiting for me to do it all day long. So those are systems being elevated on one another. Here's an example of a non-existent system. I get the mail every 5 days or so. And when I get the mail, I don't know what to do with it, and I don't want to deal with it right away. So I stick it on my table until at some point I don't know what to do with my life, and I know I have to do something with the mail. So I hastily go through it. But every bone of my body doesn't want to do this. I just know that I have to. Can anyone relate to that? I feel like that used to be my life. Now, all this stuff in our home, all of the things that we have are decisions waiting to be made. Some of the stuff we need to make a decision on whether or not it leaves our house. But some of it is like, okay, my computer, where does that go? The laptop stand that it sits on, where does that go? If things are out, I've got to make decisions on where I put them back. But if we have so much stuff sitting out in our lives, then it's going to be incredibly difficult to make those decisions on where those things go because oftentimes they don't have homes. So coming back to being organized is really just having homes for all of the stuff that you have. This is a lot of information, but I really just wanted to break it down for you. My best advice for you when you're getting started is to start small to prove to yourself that you can do it. Because so often I hear, in fact, one of my clients that I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, she didn't want to do this because she didn't believe that she could succeed. So why do we fail at this? Why do we fail at creating systems in our home? Because we know we want it, right? We want to have a simpler life. We want it to make sense. And we want to live in a life that's more calm and less chaotic. So why do we fail? The first thing is that we have too much stuff. We have these grandiose, beautiful ideas, and we think about all of the things that could possibly happen, which means that we keep all of these things just in case. We've got a lot of just in cases hanging out in our life. So instead of thinking about the here and now and what we need in our life to thrive now, we're thinking about the future and we're keeping things from our past. So oftentimes we fail because we have too much. That has been my experience, not only with myself, but with my clients as well. Why else do people fail? A lack of communication. There are times where we spend the entire day organizing. You've seen the memes, you've seen the videos of people sitting down to organize for an entire day. They do it and, well, maybe they get to the end and they're like, why did I start this? They're still surrounded by piles of stuff, right? If we're doing that in a day, it's going to cause so much overwhelm and so much fatigue that we're going to remember that feeling more than we're going to remember the actual result of us getting organized. And that feeling of getting organized, the overwhelm and the exhaustion is going to remind us that we don't want to do it again. It's this unspoken barrier between us getting up to do something and actually doing it. So when you're spending all of that time getting that stuff done, we now have the perfect spaces for everything. But guess what? We're so exhausted. We forget to communicate with our family what this new system is and what it looks like. And so then guess what our family does? They ruin everything. Why do they do this to us? We come up with the perfect plan and the perfect execution on where things go and how to put them back, so on and so forth, but we forget to communicate. Even if we do communicate, we don't continue to communicate. It's like we tell them once, and then if they don't execute on it and they don't manage to keep it in this state of perfection that we've created, then we give up because we're like, well, I guess we can't do that because it's all ruined now. And we forget the fact that humans make mistakes and we're creatures of habit. And when we're going through a change, we're bound to make more mistakes until we can actually stick to something. And if we're not labeling things, we are going to forget too. Our working memory is not great. And what we've done is we've taken this incredible project, but we've stored it in now this book that we've stuck into the back of our brain, into our long-term memory. And this working memory that we had in the time during the creation of this beautiful project is non-existent. If I stood there for a long time and was like, where did I want to put the pens? And where did I want to put this paper? And where did I want to put the kinetic sand? Yeah, I could remember, but without labels, it's going to make it so much harder for me to keep this system going. Labels are our informal communication process, not only for ourselves, but for our family. Another reason why people fail is because they don't believe in themselves. I talked about that earlier. My client didn't believe that she could do that. And a lot of what I work through with my clients is that belief. Why are you doubting yourself? It's because you failed before? Good. What did you learn from that? Why didn't it work? That's actually great that you tried and you failed because we can analyze some of the reasons why it didn't work before so that we can start to build upon that foundation. You do have a foundation that you're building off of. And why didn't it work before? Well, because a lot of you had undiagnosed ADHD and you didn't know that you were trying to do things in a neurotypical way and not necessarily in a neurodivergent way. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. There's so many different barriers that are going to keep us from executing things in an organized manner just because of the nature of who we are as people. That's okay, but that's why I'm having these conversations, because I want you to know that you can do it. It's just not going to be in the way that you've done it before. And that's great. I'm going to teach you a different way. We're going to learn what's going to work for you. If you believe that you can't do it, and then something that you've done failed, right? Like you tried to implement a new system, tried to organize the craft closet. I have experience in this. And then it failed. You're just fueling that already pretty deep down belief that you can't do it. When we have a belief in ourselves, like I'm a failure, I can't do things, I'm not good at being organized, then anytime we do something that doesn't stick, that fuels the fire of the belief in ourselves. So part of this change and growth and understanding of ourselves is just knowing that we've got to change the way that we talk to ourselves. I've been working on this for a long time. I was previously 120 pounds heavier than I am right now. I used to drink a lot. I'm almost 2 years sober. A lot of me getting out of those different aspects of my life took me talking to myself in a positive way, even when I wasn't ready to do it. I did it anyway because I knew that I wanted to believe in myself in a way that made sense and not in the way that I've done my entire life. So sometimes when I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? Because that's what my brain is used to doing. I then sit here and say, oh my gosh, I'm doing amazing things with my life. I'm so proud of me. I'm doing so much. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep learning. And every day is a new opportunity and a new day for me to learn more. That takes time. But it's okay to be coming from a place where you didn't believe in yourself or you don't believe in yourself, because literally that is what you've trained your brain to do your entire life. And likely what other people have helped you train your brain into doing, because maybe you're surrounded by assholes. That could be a real situation. And then why else do people fail? I'm going to say this, but then I'm going to clarify. Lack of consistency, but consistency in the way that us as ADHDers can do it. Because here's the thing, I have a morning routine, but I don't do it every day. I also like to take care of myself and take time for myself, but I don't always do it every day. Consistency is interesting because you're thinking, oh, I'm a failure. So this goes back to what I previously believed about myself. And obviously I can't do anything right, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so come back to that. Consistency is non-existent for ADHDers. First of all, we're going to forget. If we don't have it written down, we're going to forget. If we don't have reminders set in our phone, we're going to forget. So if we're trying to implement something new and a new way of thinking, we've got to find a way to remind ourselves on a regular basis. And that's reminders, using our digital tools, figuring out how to remind ourselves that we are truly worthy of living a better life. We just need to use these incredible tools that are developed so that we can challenge ourselves to do these different things. Consistency is not consistency for ADHDers. It's continuity. Continuity, by definition, because I looked it up in the dictionary via Google, the unbroken and consistent existence or operation of something over a period of time, a state of stability in the absence of disruption, the maintenance of continuous action in self-consistent detail in the various scenes of a movie or broadcast. Continuity, it just means that you're coming back to what you remind yourself of and the way you want to live on a regular basis. So it's not about doing the same thing every day. In fact, sometimes that gets really boring and we thrive on things that change, but we also thrive on routine. Oh my God, it's so hard to be us, but also it's amazing at the same time. So when we're thinking about continuity, you can do it and it's okay if you miss a day. I like to think about it this way, and I kind of hate it at the same time, But I think about it like eating healthier or trying to make a lifestyle change that just makes sense for us. If you want to start losing weight, it's not as if you make a decision and then you lose 30 pounds the next day. There's a lot of work that goes into losing weight. And so, what is the one thing that you can do today? You can't do anything yesterday. Yesterday is gone. You don't yet have tomorrow. You literally only have today. So, what's one thing you could do today? We love to create these grandiose plans of what our life is going to be like once we accomplish this gigantic thing. But what's the one thing that we could do today? Honestly, the grandiose things that we achieve, these momentous moments in our life, come to us after these baby steps and these moments in the right direction of where we want to go. And so it's the same thing with organizing. It's not like you decide to be organized one day and then you are organized. You decide that you want to adopt a more organized lifestyle and you start to take steps in that direction. So one thing that you could ask yourself is, okay, I'm not yet where I want to be, but today, what is one step that I could take to being more organized? Sometimes that's the 15-minute challenge that I've been posting on my social medias. Sometimes that's throwing out something that's expired in the pantry or in your spice cabinet. Sometimes that's donating a child's toy that they haven't played with in years, but it's getting out of your house. That's one less decision that needs to be made. If you did one thing for 365 days, that's one thing 365 days closer to where you want to be. Will this take years? Likely. How long did it take you to get into the situation that you're in right now? So what's the ADHD way of doing things? I don't think that it's a one size fits all in the ADHD community. It's how to organize that makes sense for you personally and how you live your life every single day. I was in a Q&A group the other day, and one of the attendees mentioned that her and her husband, oftentimes they found themselves waking each other up in the middle of the night or whenever they had to get ready. And sleep is really important. So when you're interrupting someone else's sleep and they have to get to a job a little bit later, a little bit earlier, that can be difficult. So they decided to take all of their work stuff, only work stuff, and put it in their dining room. They got a little plastic container for their work stuff, and then that's where they got dressed in the morning. She said that she would beat herself up because she felt weird having her work stuff in the dining room, except that it made sense for her and made her live a life where her sleep wasn't interrupted or her husband's sleep wasn't interrupted. That makes sense for them. So what does being organized mean to you? If you listened to the podcast before, you know I started this business. I wanted to create these Pinterest perfect pantries with labels and all of this beauty. And after working with my clients and asking more questions, I realized that my version of organizing is going to be totally different than my client's version of organizing. So I've learned the different questions to ask my clients so that they can make sense of what their life is. One of my other clients, I asked her in her pantry, do you want to decant your stuff, which means to open everything up and pour it into a different container so that you can see what's there? And she goes, no, absolutely not. I do not want to do that. And I was like, cool. Here's what you can do to make this easier then. We're just going to rip off the cardboard box sides so that you can see in here to see what you have. First of all, it's going to make it so much easier for you and your kids to grab snacks because you can simply reach your hand in. You don't have to worry about any of the flaps getting in the way. And you can see how much is left in there. So if this is a regular snack you buy on a regular basis, you can quickly look in the pantry, look inside that box and see how many you have left, decide if you want to buy it again. So we can create these different systems of organizing depending on what your needs are. Okay, so why is the ADHD way different? Because it's not about just slapping a label on something and saying, here I am, I'm organized. It's more about like, how are you currently living your life and how can we add organization to it? So for example, you come home, you throw your keys on the top of the washer and dryer, but then oftentimes there's so many other things on top of the washer and dryer that you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where my keys are right now. And now I'm going to be late and I'm frantic and rushing, blah, blah, blah. What if you threw your keys there every day, but we just simply moved things over for a second, right? Because this is a process. We're not cleaning everything off right away. What if we just moved things over and had a spot for the keys? Like we got a little basket, we looked through. Maybe you have a little basket already. Maybe that's something that you purchased. Maybe it's even shaped like a key because cute. What? I don't know. Or maybe we have the key rack right there next to where you throw it down and we're going to hang it up and we start to train ourselves to do that. When I'm going through my podcast and I'm talking to you about organizing and creating systems and what it looks like for ADHD, I talk about starting small, which is incredibly hard for us because we only know big. We only know grandiose. We only know rushing. We only know going at the speed of our brain and trying to match the speed of our brain with our body until we get burnt out and we forget to drink or go to the bathroom. It's okay that that's happening, but when we constantly come back to remind ourselves that it's okay to do things in small increments, we have huge wins. The smaller we do things, the easier it is to get them done, which means the easier it is to get us to do them again because, well, if I'm doing something in 15 minutes, it's only 15 minutes. I can do anything in 15 minutes, except for a plank. Don't make me do a plank for 15 minutes. I can do a lot of things in 15 minutes. That's easy to come back to. And even if I'm a little exhausted afterwards, I'm going to keep coming back to it because it's only 15 minutes. Where if I'm trying to do something in 3 hours and try to make it stick, where I'm more likely to have it fail because it's this grandiose thing that I've done, and I'm less likely to come back to it. Start small. What is one thing that you could do to get more organized? And most people are going to say, but I've got a lot to do. Okay, a lot to do that you don't typically do on a regular basis. So what's one thing? Just do one thing. And then as you build up confidence, you will start to do more things. You'll want to do more things because you know you can succeed at more things. You're going to develop this belief in yourself that you can do it because that's what you want. And then you're going to start to look for the evidence around you that you can do hard things. When we have all this stuff in our house, we're so good at procrastinating, right? So we look at this and we're like, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later until you've got piles of I'll deal with that later all over the place. And then you keep doing it because you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. Okay, so knowing where to start. Only you can make that decision on where to start. But I want you to think about some of these things. Where do you spend the most time? Is it in your office? Our environment tells a lot about what our day is going to be like. Do you spend a lot of time in the kitchen making food or cooking for your family? Do you spend a lot of time in the living room taking care of your kids? And maybe they're playing, maybe there's a toy area there. Where do you spend the most time? Maybe that's where you start. You're already there. So if you can start to implement 15 minutes a day, decluttering and organizing, creating systems, that is a good place to start. It's also said that your entryway, where you leave and you enter your home each day, creates the way that you feel in your home. And it creates the way that you feel when you're leaving. So if you've got a crazy entryway that is full of stuff and full of shoes and full of jackets and hats and scarves and you name it, and you're leaving it every day and it's overwhelming you, well, you're going to be overwhelmed as you walk past it and leave the house, even if it's unsaid. And then you're going to be overwhelmed when you come back and you have to pass it again. Maybe you start there. I could come up with some more places to start. Here's the thing. Just pick one. And then just focus on that area. Your rule is you've got to figure out what does done look like in this area. And then you don't work on any other areas until that place is done. Because if everything is important, then nothing is important. So give yourself a rule to live by, write it down so you can remind yourself, right? Because you might forget the rule that you set for yourself. And then come back to that on a regular basis. Continuity versus consistency. Where I would not start is in your garage. Where's the dumping ground? Where's the place you put all the stuff? Don't necessarily start there. Unless that is your office. Unless that is the place that you spend the most time, you've got to make that decision. The reason why I don't say start with the garage is because that's sometimes one of the most difficult places to effectively create systems that are going to last. I know I have been decluttering my garage for years now. Part of that is because sometimes that's where I keep my inventory for the stuff I'm selling on Facebook Marketplace, which is minimal. I also stick all my donations in there. I throw cardboard boxes in there. Like, it is my dumping ground. One day, it is going to be a more organized garage, or one that could be Pinterest worthy. But right now, it is my own version of organized, and that is okay with me. In fact, I look at this garage that has a bunch of donations on the floor right now, and I'm like, oh, nope, that's progress. That's progress, because I know that stuff is leaving, and I am going to take that stuff to the donation place. And I know what some of you might be thinking is, well, Megs, what if I forget to take it to the donation place? That's a system that we can develop. What is the day that we're leaving the house? What is the day that we're going to the grocery store? And set up a trigger that's going to remind you, I'm going to go and drop this off to the donation place as well. I have some people that actually schedule their donations to be picked up once a month. Brilliant. You don't even have to leave your house. There's other people that really like their stuff to go to a new home. This does take longer, but if that is your full wish for all of the stuff in your home, then you can find a sell nothing site or buy nothing site in your town where people will just come and pick it up, because it's something that'll elevate their life. Also, I'm not a tax professional, but I'm going to say this. If you like to keep track of your donations, I like to use the app through TurboTax called It's Deductible. It's a free app where you can actually categorize and track your donations in real time. You make a list of where you're taking it in, the address of the donation place, and then it'll keep it on this app for you. You can also send yourself an email, and you can start to say, oh, 2023 taxes, 2024 taxes. And then when you get that email, you can save it in a file. Maybe you come up with a naming convention. We're getting into some digital organization right now. We're not going to dabble in that yet, right? Because we're still talking about some of the basics. Tune in on Wednesday morning, and I'm going to drop in the second half of this episode. Thanks so much for listening. Drop a comment in what you took away so far from this episode in the leave a text message option. And that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of Organizing an ADHD Brain. Remember, your ADHD can be super powerful, and with the right tools and strategies, you can truly thrive. Do you feel like you could benefit from some personalized guidance in managing your ADHD and creating a life that works for you? I offer coaching sessions to help you declutter your space, manage your time more effectively, and achieve your goals. Ready to take the next step? Click the link in the show notes to schedule a free consultation call with me. We can discuss your unique needs and see if coaching is a good fit for you. Before we go, I want to share a quick shout out to my friend Perry's amazing business, Remedy Bath. Remedy Bath is a small batch skincare company that creates luxurious, handcrafted products to help you relax and unwind. They're especially known for their incredible CBD bath bombs and direct pain cream. If you're looking to treat yourself or find some relief from aches and pains, head over to remedybath.co and use the code MEGBATHCO, MEGBATHCO, for a special discount. Want to take your ADHD journey even further? Consider supporting the show on Patreon. Your contributions help me create more content, invest in better equipment, and reach even more listeners. Visit the Patreon link in the show notes to learn more. As always, the content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. I am not a doctor or medical professional. Please consult with your healthcare provider regarding any specific questions or concerns you may have. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember, your brain is amazing, and you